look in great form and are being led around by one of the best players I've seen in Super League. As for Wigan, who except when they scored didn't look like scoring, won the welcome to the one fuck all end of season party. Still, you did all right to come back from definite relegation earlier in the season.
And Uncle Owen Hughes said, I feel in complete dreamland. I could get my head around us having an okay season and making playoffs, but not this. And doing it playing so well as well. I am grateful to my team for the opportunity to watch them at Old Trafford in a grand final, win or lose, but we can dream. Special mention to Eccles. What a season he has had. I wonder where Watson will end up next season. He deserves a great job after this season.
Why is he trying to get rid of his coach?
I think he's, glass half empty.
Oh, Owen. It feels like he's getting too much with this Salford side, doesn't he?
He does. He's like... And plus, he has spent most of the last 4 weeks in a semi-conscious state. So,
well, this is where he finds himself in the dreamland, you see.
I know, it's amazing. We said he's got to get better so he can go to Old Trafford.
I would love to see him there. I really hope to.
The old man bought the tickets today.
Oh, are your dad going as well?
And Joshua.
Oh, and Joshua, but not you?
No, I'm not. One of our teenagers at church is having a party that we've been invited to. It's her 18th. But Dad, Joshua, Owen's dad, who has never been to a rugby match before.
This is the power of the underdog coming to the big games.
Yeah, someone called Chung, who has been to rugby matches before, and some other random people he's bringing along as well.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
Ron Hoof, who has quickly become one of our more entertaining new entrants at the back end of the season. We want more of these bants from Ron next year. He says, Golden Edge, Golden Shower more like it, going to be a quiet Christmas in Pyland. Now for the rightful champions to reclaim the crown. Lick 'em and stick 'em. Lick 'em and stick 'em. Don't even get it. I just don't get it, but it's funny.
St David said, sat among the Pie faithful for this one. Felt dirty, to be honest. Salford played a sensible game, ran hard and tackled well, but Wigan were poor throughout. Did last week's battering do for them? Grand final should be a cracker. Come on, Saints, bring it home.
Yeah, he went incognito as a Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs fan. Roger the cabin boy said, well done Salford, deserved the win over a crap Wigan team. O'Loughlin, who used to be head and shoulders above his teammates, now merely targets the head and shoulders of his opposition.
He's always done that.
Yeah, he's been prone to the odd penalty, but, if he didn't have a flaw, then we wouldn't know he was human. That's how I look at our supreme leader. But anyway,
he has more flaws than a carpet shop.
No, he's got more trophies than
a carpet
LFC.
shop.
I don't know. I lost my way. Right, let's talk about the game anyway, and let's do ample praise to Salford, who really put in a controlled performance. The way I look at it is, when St Helens battered us last week, Saints were amazing, and Wigan weren't terrible. They were just nowhere near Saints. This week, I think Wigan were terrible, and Salford were just so controlled to take advantage of everything Wigan put on a plate for them, and thoroughly deserved the win. And I had a bad feeling when, on the fourth tackle of the first set, after us making a good 10 metres every carry, Sam Powell put in a pretty weak kick straight to their winger. And then it just all went wrong from there, from starting to give away penalties, Willie Isa kicking on the last tackle, errors and more errors. From Wigan's point of view, it just was not the side that we've come accustomed to watching in this time of the year over recent years. But from Salford, they were inspired. The ex-Wigan contingent in particular, and the future Wigan contingent as well, because Jake Bibby has been poor against Wigan this season, I'd say, especially in the 2 games he's played since being announced that he'd moved to Wigan.
That's because he had a scarf in his hand, didn't it?
That was what caused it. Well, he was obviously forgetting all about that scarf on Friday nights. He carried the ball very strongly indeed, I thought, in the game. All the Salford backs did. I mean, we didn't target well enough. Evalds was pretty much flawless defensively. Lola here got involved occasionally, forced a few repeat sets and that sort of stuff. But it was Jackson Hastings, he was outstanding. Josh Jones, I talked about Josh Jones 2 weeks ago, having a really big game in terms of his metres and carries, but he didn't actually hurt Wigan. Well, in the first half, it was more of the same of that, but he came out after the half-time and started offloading, and I think Salford felt comfortable at that stage with a 2-score lead, that if they attacked a bit more in that 20 minutes after half-time, they could really take the game and win it at that stage, and I think that's what they really did. What? Joey, we've seen Joey Lussick do this so many times. Why can't we stop it? But anyway, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought that Salford were the better team. It was just one of those that it always felt that Salford were just going to stay ahead for most of the game. They just seemed to outplay Wigan across the park. I don't feel like you could necessarily say, that was the turning point. They scored first, and at that point it was like, 4-0, okay. Even 10-0, I was still a bit like, oh, well, there's still a long time in the match, but they just kept scoring tries. And
I think that 12-0 was maybe a turning point on the hooter at the end of the first half, because Wigan made a break, but Ben Thaler pulled it back for a phantom obstruction, and it gave Salford the opportunity to make it a full 2-score lead, which was completely deserved by the way that they played, and the way that Wigan had played. They deserved to be 2 scores behind as well. But that was, from my point of view, the first time Wigan looked like we could do something, and it came back. We didn't get to do something, and then Salford was so strong in the opening burst of that second half. They really did absolutely dominate that period of the game then after that, with that confidence of having that 2-score lead. And
it was only a 2-score lead at the same time, but Watson just seemed to, I don't know what he said at half time, but it was the right thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he timed his interchanges well. Wigan players did look tired. Wigan had three interchanges done after 21 minutes, 22 minutes. Salford didn't have their first interchange until just after that point. So, they were definitely the side that were in better physical shape for this one. Wigan, maybe it's been a couple of games too far for some of their young players. I was really disappointed with Adrian Lamb not changing the side up at all, other than cosmetically starting Flower, bringing Club off the bench. But what's that really? There should have been a bit of a refresh in that 17, I think, especially in the forwards, but it wasn't to be. Gil Dudson and Lee Mossop constantly this season have come up in for us guys to talk about, haven't they?
Yeah.
But we haven't seen them enough, have we? So we haven't been able to see if they've been as impressive in the other games compared to the games we've seen. Like, Mossop's made a lot of meters. Dudson seemed to have some real big physical plays when you've seen him play. We're now seeing them consistently week in, week out, and they're playing out of their skin. They're playing as well as they've ever played.
Yeah, they feel like that sort of, I don't mean this disrespectfully because they've completely blown this out of the water, but like Lee Mossop, Gil Dudson, they're the sort of, well, I guess the misfits they could have been, possibly have been, should have been, whatever. But, here they are, and they're the players that are being talked about. Yeah,
you've got players who've won finals in the past in Mossop, in Dudson, in McCarthy, in Flanagan, who are all players that were told, nah, you're not really for us at those teams.
Yep.
And they're really doing.
It shows that the sum of the parts is greater than the individual components, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And back to the talk we had about Ian Watson before, isn't it? Hugely, and that was with a sprinkling of stardust of Hastings and Joey Lussick coming off the bench and doing what he's done all year. They were very good. The key numbers were the error numbers, and
That's
this is why
huge.
when I talk about this game, I talk about this game as Wigan were terrible and Salford just took what Wigan gave them, because Salford weren't particularly expansive. They actually threw less passes in the game than Wigan did. Obviously, Wigan were chasing the game, but they weren't expansive. They didn't do the stupid things that they did 2 weeks ago to lose to Wigan. They realised once they took a lead against this Wigan side aren't great back runners, not like Wigan sides of 2 or 3 years, last year and 3 years ago, who could go into every game at half time behind, and you'd know on the terraces as a Wigan fan we were going to win that game. This is not that Wigan side at the moment, and Salford knew that, and Salford took full advantage of that by giving Wigan nothing.
Yeah.
I was very, very impressed with that side of things. We'll talk a little bit more about what they can do next week when we get to the predictions. Was there anything else you wanted to pick out from this game then? I
know that the young kid in tears has been highlighted quite a lot in the press. The Salford fans celebrating at the end. Yeah. But I thought actually there was the contrast between him and there must have been a guy who, I don't know, was in his 70s maybe, celebrating just the same with the tears and everything else. And just to see that contrast of ages and different experiences, but the same reaction, I just thought that was just to see what it means to fans.
Special for the fans, wasn't it? On the radio driving away from the game, they got a Salford fan on who'd been at the game with his granddaughter, and he was in his 50s. She was about 8 or 9, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
And he said how the last time Salford got to a major final, his dad said to him, "Oh, I think you're too young. There'll always be next year." So this was when he was 7 or 8. So he's waited 50 years since then for Salford to get to another major final. And he was just so delighted that he gets to take his granddaughter to it and all that's around that. It's stories like that with us as being fans, we feel that too, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, seeing the kid and then seeing the man, it really did give me goosebumps, actually. Yeah. I think because you just know what it would be like for your team and, the people that you're around and stand with and go with and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And the other thing that I thought was really nice was Josh Griffin was there watching it in the stands. And at the end, he pushed his way down to the front along with all the other fans to give Ian Watson a hug, and he was very emotional. Was Griff, which because he had a lot of years at Salford, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a couple of. He was the big man in the big moment when it was the last time they were in a big game, and what the opposite ends of the scale in terms of what those big games are and what those big games mean is unbelievable in the space of 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so for me it was. It wasn't even so much what was on the pitch. It was just to see the fans enjoy it. And that was special. Yeah. But then I always think that's special.
You are right though, because some of the stuff on the pitch was controlled by Salford and uninspired by Wigan, but the Salford fans were certainly inspired.
Yeah.
In terms of the predictions, I obviously went for my team. Didn't pay out well for me going heart over head last week. I was wrong, and I'm on 67% now, tied with Alan on 67%. Tim went with Salford, so he won. So he's now caught up with you, Sarah. You're both tied on 53%. It's kind of like the Super League table, isn't it? Like me and Alan are that group chasing the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you and Tim are that group at the bottom, but still very close all year, all throughout the whole season.
You see, my argument is it's always my bad weeks that I'm on the show.
It is, yeah.
I tipped Salford. Admittedly, only by 1 point.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, does
Not
it?
for this, no.
No, we're going to have to do something next year where we get scores for all of us each of the weeks. In terms of the Super Route, Alan does stay on top, but Owen Hughes wears the yellow cap this week after no doubt backing his Salford side to win. And in the Fantasy League, we know Alan Bagley is already the champion there. Thanks to the people who got the views in on this game. Make sure you all get your fan views in on the grand final next week. We're now going to move on to other results of similarly significant, if not more significant, consequence from around the rest of the world of Rugby League.